911. You need,
Please, help me, I'm Amanda Berry.
you need police, fire, or ambulance.
I need police.
Okay, and what's going on there?
I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years and I'm here, I'm free now.
Okay, and what's your address?
2207 Seymour Avenue.
2207 Seymour. Looks like you're calling me from 2210. Okay, stay there with those names. Call the police when they get there.
Okay, hello?
Yeah, talk to the police when they get there.
Okay, I'm right now. I
We're
need
going
them
to send
now.
them as soon as we get a car open.
No, I need them now before he gets back.
All right, we're sending them, okay?
Okay, I need what you know.
Who's the guy who's the guy that went out?
His name is Ariel Castro. I'm Amanda Berry. I've been on the news for the last 10 years.
Okay, I got that here. I already... Right, the police are on the way. Talk to them when they get there, okay? I told you they're on the way. Talk to them when they get there, okay?
All right, okay.
It was a desperate call for help, a voice long thought to be lost, speaking from the depths of captivity. On May 6, 2013, Amanda Berry's harrowing words shattered a decade of silence. She had been missing for 10 years, but that day, she broke free.
They've never given up. Nobody has. I mean, we were just digging down the street from there last year. And here she was right there, a couple houses away. Oh, my God.
The unimaginable had been hidden in plain sight, a house of horrors in Cleveland, Ohio. 3 young women, Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight, were finally rescued from captivity after enduring years of abuse at the hands of a man they once trusted. Their story is not just one of tragedy, but of extraordinary resilience.
Oh my God, it was crazy. The street, they closed the whole street. There was like 15 cars of police cars, ambulance. It was a lot of people.
Prayers have finally been answered. The nightmare is over. These 3 young ladies have provided us with the ultimate definition of survival and perseverance.
For over a decade, their families searched, their loved ones hoped, and their community remained haunted by unanswered questions. How could this have happened? How did a man like Ariel Castro, a seemingly ordinary school bus driver, manage to abduct and imprison not 1 but 3 local girls?
Well, I was shocked to know it because I've been here for 30 years. I own this whole lot and these 2 houses here, and I've seen the fella here, and I never suspected anything like this. Nobody has suspected anything like this. The family's been here for years. The Castro family's been there for years. It's incredible.
This case left the world asking, how could it go unnoticed for so long? Why didn't the women try to escape sooner? And most importantly, how many other missing persons might still be out there, waiting to be found? Hello, and welcome back to our channel where we shed light on mysterious cases from across the globe. If you still haven't subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe button and press the notification bell below. Now, let's dive right into this mystery without any further delay. August 23, 2002, a day Michelle Knight believed would improve her life. Instead, it began a nightmare that would steal over a decade from her. Determined to regain custody of her 2-year-old son, Joey, Michelle set out for an important meeting. Every step she took was filled with hope for a second chance, hope to reclaim the life she had lost. But hope can be deceptive, and fate had something far darker in store. Lost and anxious, Michelle wandered the streets, searching for the correct address. Then, a familiar voice called out. Ariel Castro, the father of a childhood friend, pulled up beside her, offering help. His voice was warm, his smile disarming. With no reason to doubt him, Michelle accepted the ride, a decision that would chain her to a decade of terror. The drive should have taken only minutes, but Castro had other plans. "Why don't you come in? I have a puppy Joey would love," he suggested casually. Reluctantly, Michelle followed him inside, the smell of stale air filling her lungs. The door clicked shut. In an instant, everything changed. The warmth in Castro's voice faded, replaced by an eerie silence. Michelle's early life was marked by hardship. She had grown up in a troubled home, facing abuse and instability. At just 14, overwhelmed by her circumstances, she ran away, only to later return with hopes of rebuilding her life. But struggles continued. At 18, she became pregnant, reportedly as a result of an assault. Despite her love for Joey, she lost custody of him in 2002 due to circumstances beyond her control. This meeting was her chance to fight for him, a fight that would be stolen from her the moment she stepped into Castro's car. Instead of driving to the meeting, Castro lured Michelle into his house under the guise of picking up a puppy for Joey, a promise that would never come true. Once inside, the door locked behind her, and her nightmare began. In moments, Michelle was bound, extension cords cutting into her skin, a dirty sock shoved into her mouth, silencing the screams that no one would hear. The basement swallowed her whole, plunging her into a darkness she couldn't escape. Castro told her, "You're not going to leave for a long time," and began taking off his clothes. To break her spirit, Castro tore apart the photo of her son into tiny pieces. It was the only picture she brought of him. Days blurred into nights. A heavy motorcycle helmet pressed against her skull, trapping her thoughts inside. Michelle screamed until her throat was raw, but the deafening music swallowed her voice. No one could hear. No one would come. But the torment didn't stop there. For a fleeting moment, hope arrived in the form of a tiny pit bull puppy she named Lobo. The dog became her companion, her only source of comfort. But even that was stolen from her. One day, Lobo sensed danger and stood between her and Castro. He grabbed the puppy without hesitation and snapped its neck, another brutal reminder of his absolute control. It was a message. He had complete control over her life. Michelle's captivity was marked by relentless abuse, both physical and psychological. He controlled every aspect of her life, when she could eat, where she could sleep, and what she could wear. Each passing day chipped away at her hope.
I would give her a big hug and kiss and say, "I love you." Mister? Yes.
Michelle's disappearance didn't trigger an immediate, large-scale search. Police believed she had run away. Again, just 15 months after she was reported missing, authorities removed her name from the missing persons database. Her case was forgotten. Michelle's mother continued searching, but reports suggest that her family made little effort to locate her. When there was no sign of what had happened to Michelle, her son was eventually adopted by another family. On at least one occasion, Michelle tried to escape the house where Castro kept her confined. During her attempt, her neck and back were hurt so badly that she was afraid to try again. She said, "We had no way to get out of that house, and even if we tried, we got hurt." Despite everything, Michelle refused to break. She clung to the thought of survival, whispering to herself, "He wants to break me, but you can't break something that's already shattered. You can only make it stronger." 7 months after Michelle had been kidnapped and held captive, April 21, 2003, just one day before her 17th birthday, Amanda Berry was heading home after a long shift at the fast food restaurant, thinking about the celebration waiting for her. She almost didn't go to work that day. If only she had listened to her instincts. If only she had stayed home. But fate had other plans. A few blocks from home, Amanda noticed a vehicle parked awkwardly across the driveway, forcing her to walk around it. Inside, she spotted familiar faces. A man and a girl she thought she knew, Ariel Castro and his daughter. She smiled politely. After all, she had once been friends with his daughter in middle school. That fleeting moment of recognition would become the biggest mistake of her life. As Amanda continued walking, the vehicle slowly rolled forward beside her. The girl was gone. Only Castro remained behind the wheel. "Need a ride?" he asked, his voice casual, almost friendly. Amanda hesitated, an uneasy feeling gnawing at her. But it was him, someone she knew. What harm could it do? With a reluctant nod, she climbed in. It was a decision that would change her life forever. The drive home should have been short, but Amanda noticed Castro taking unfamiliar turns. "My daughter's waiting at home," he said. "Come say hi." The hesitation returned, but she pushed it down. It's just a quick stop, she thought. But when they pulled into the driveway of 2207 Seymour Avenue, Amanda's stomach tightened. The house was dark, silent. Something wasn't right. "Come inside," Castro urged, unlocking the door. Amanda stepped in. Before she could react, the door slammed shut behind her. The outside world faded away, and with it, Amanda's freedom. In the darkness of the house, Amanda's world became a prison. Castro led her upstairs and into a small, cold room. There, she saw another woman asleep in the next room. But before Amanda could react, Castro forced her into a separate bedroom. Terror flooded Amanda's veins as Castro shoved her into a bedroom. The air was heavy, thick with dread. Duct tape tore through the silence, binding her wrists and ankles with terrifying ease. Then a belt, tight, suffocating, wrapped around them. A motorcycle helmet was forced onto her head, trapping her in suffocating darkness. Castro went one step further and added a belt over the tape around her ankles. He told her that if she was quiet, he would take her home. But it was a lie.
Hey, we're about to reach out my daughter, Amanda Berry. Thank you all very much for being here. I appreciate it.
Amanda's family launched a desperate search. Flyers were plastered across Cleveland. News stations aired her story, and her mother, Luana Miller, never gave up hope. 1 week after Amanda's disappearance, Castro called Amanda's family using her cell phone. In a chilling move, he taunted them, using a nickname only her loved ones knew: Mandy. Around this time, the FBI had developed technology capable of tracking a cell phone's location, but it only worked if the phone was turned on. Authorities narrowed down the call to within 2 blocks of where Castro lived, and they staked out the area for weeks, hoping for a sign of Amanda. Authorities traced the call to within a 2-block radius of Castro's house. They staked out the area for weeks, but the phone never turned on again. The trail went cold. While the world searched, Amanda was locked away just streets from her home, watched the news on an old TV Castro provided, saw her family's pleas, unable to respond. Months passed. Amanda found solace in the only thing Castro allowed her to have: a diary. In it, she poured out her pain, longing, and dreams of freedom. "You never know what you've got till it's gone. I just can't wait to go home. I'm 17 now, but don't have a life." She counted the days, hoping the nightmare would end soon. But the abuse continued. Castro's control grew stronger. When Amanda was first taken, Michelle only saw her for a few minutes, but then didn't see her again for months. Castro likely kept the girls separate so they wouldn't be able to band together against him. If they were together when he wasn't around, he wouldn't know what they were discussing, especially what they were saying about him, and this would make him feel like he was not in control. Everything Castro did was about control. For Amanda, survival became about endurance, holding on to the thought of her family, clinging to the hope that one day she would break free. Amanda's mother, Luana Miller, refused to give up hope. Night after night, she appeared on television, pleading for answers. She plastered missing posters across Cleveland, clinging to the belief that Amanda was still alive. Hope was all she had left. But in 2006, tragedy struck. Luana Miller passed away from heart failure. Some said, from a broken heart. Amanda would never get to see her mother again. Although she never got answers, Amanda's mother's hope was not in vain. It was her persistence that kept Amanda's story alive. As the years dragged on, Amanda became accustomed to life inside Castro's house. He moved her to a different room and tightened his control. He often told her, "You're never leaving here." But Amanda refused to accept that. Despite the horror, Amanda's resilience never wavered. And one day, an opportunity would come, one that she wouldn't let slip away. Stay with us as we uncover how Amanda Berry, against all odds, found the strength to fight for her freedom. Even with 2 women who were already kept captive in his house, Castro wanted more. A year after he took Amanda, he went looking for another victim. April 2, 2004. Gina DeJesus, just 14 years old, was walking home from school like she did every other day. As Gina rounded the corner onto her street, a vehicle slowed beside her. She glanced over, expecting to see a familiar face, and she did. Ariel Castro, her best friend Arlene's father, peered out from the driver's seat. He asked Gina if she had seen his daughter. The request didn't seem unusual for the teen, so she agreed and got into the car with him. She had no idea that stepping into his car would mean she would never walk home again. The drive was short, but Gina felt a knot forming in her stomach when they pulled into Castro's driveway. The house was eerily quiet, the curtains drawn tight. "I just need to grab something," Castro said, gesturing for her to follow him inside. Gina hesitated. Something didn't feel right, but she followed him anyway. The door slammed shut behind her as soon as she crossed the threshold. The smile vanished from Castro's face. Gina's instincts screamed at her to run, but Castro grabbed her arm, dragging her down the darkened hallway. She kicked, screamed, tried everything, but he was too strong. In moments, she found herself in the basement, cold metal chains biting into her wrists. The sound of her own frantic breathing was soon drowned out by deafening music blasting from the speakers above. No one would hear her cries. No one was coming to save her. Gina was different from the others. She was just 14, still filled with innocence and trust. Her disappearance shook the community. When she didn't come home, her mother, Nancy Ruiz, called the police immediately. But instead of launching an urgent search, authorities assumed she had run away, just like they did with Michelle Knight 2 years earlier. Gina's family refused to accept the idea that she had run away. Her father, Felix de Jesus, and her mother led countless searches across the city. Candlelight vigils were held, and posters flooded the neighborhood. And in a cruel twist, Castro, Gina's abductor, joined the search efforts himself as a friend of Gina's father. He handed out missing flyers, comforted Gina's mother, and even attended vigils, all while knowing exactly where she was. It was a twisted game for him, hiding in plain sight, feeding off the family's despair. Inside the house, Gina's reality grew darker. Castro used his connection to her family to control her further. He constantly reminded her that her parents were searching but would never find her. For the first few weeks, Castro held Gina captive. He mostly left her alone. She was chained, isolated, and stripped of everything she once knew. But on May 7, 2004, he assaulted her for the first time. Horrifically, he continued to do so regularly. When Gina resisted Castro's advances, he starved her, reminding her that he held complete control. Lately, he chained up Gina and Michelle together in the same room where they had to share a mattress. They would remain together in that room during their entire captivity. On a few occasions, Michelle tried to intervene when Castro attempted to assault Gina, which resulted in her being assaulted and beaten more often herself. He would assault each of them while the other was still in the room. For over a decade, the walls of 2207 Seymour Avenue concealed a terrifying secret. To the outside world, it was just another rundown house in Cleveland. But inside, it was a prison, a fortress of fear. Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina de Jesus were completely isolated. They weren't just locked away, they endured unimaginable horrors inside these walls. Castro had turned his home into a labyrinth of torment. Windows covered with thick plywood kept out the sun, padlocks secured every door, and chains rattled like echoes of despair. The air was suffocating, a mixture of sweat, mold, and decay. Time stood still in the suffocating darkness. Each woman was confined to a filthy, windowless room. They sat in the dark, chained to rusting pipes or heavy furniture. The smell of mildew clung to their clothes, skin, and souls. Food was scarce, and when it came, it was often spoiled, just another reminder of their helplessness. Sleep came in restless fragments, haunted by the constant threat of Castro's footsteps. During the first winter she was there, Michelle was left naked for months with just a thin sheet to keep warm. She also wasn't allowed to shower for the first 8 months after she was taken. Michelle's suffering went beyond the physical. On multiple occasions, she became pregnant, clinging to the hope that life could exist in the darkness. But Castro crushed that hope literally and brutally. His fists, his feet, and his cruelty ensured she would never carry a child again. The pain lingered not just in her body, but in the hollow ache of lost motherhood. Amanda was kept in a room the size of a closet with a dirty and old mattress. She had to go to the bathroom in a bucket, which was kept in the room with her and smelled terrible. Anytime Castro showed her any kindness, it always came with disturbing conditions. Amanda recalled that whenever he allowed her to shower, she had to shower with him. Castro also psychologically manipulated them, testing them to see if they would try to escape. He sometimes pretended to leave the house and then would sneak back in without the women knowing. That way, they could never really trust he was gone. He would check that they hadn't tried to leave and warn that if he ever caught them attempting to escape, he would kill them. Other forms of manipulation were calculated gifts and deprivation to pin the girls against each other. Castro used a domestic economy to hand out rewards to the women. He would give them cash allowances that they could use to buy food and other necessities, which he could also take away. To ensure the women didn't trust each other, he intentionally played mind games with them, often between Amanda and Michelle. When he first took Gina, he gave her the nicest room and let her eat first, which caused some resentment between the women. Buying occasional little gifts for the girls was a manipulation tactic to gain their trust and cooperation. When you have had literally everything taken away from you, such as Michelle, Amanda, and Gina did, a small item takes on a larger meaning. Making sure the girls didn't trust each other was Castro's way of ensuring they didn't join forces against him. It was another form of control. One of the cruelest moments of many cruelties was when Castro told Gina she had to play Russian roulette with him and take turns pointing the gun at each other. He claimed to have loaded the gun with one bullet. At that point, Gina felt that she had nothing to lose because she thought she was going to be in that house forever. But in a resistance streak, Gina also wanted a chance to pull the trigger while the gun was aimed at Castro. She wanted to kill him. She pulled the trigger, but nothing happened. In 2006, something unexpected happened inside the house. When Amanda turned 20, she was pregnant. Unlike Michelle, who had suffered forced miscarriages at Castro's hands, Amanda was allowed to carry the child to term.
At one point, looking at Amanda and asking her, well, how about when you had your daughter? Didn't you go to the hospital? And she said, oh no, she said, I had my daughter here at the house. And she said, Michelle delivered her for me.
On Christmas Day, Amanda gave birth in a small inflatable pool in the very room where she was imprisoned. The child, Jocelyn, became a glimmer of hope in the darkness. According to Michelle, Castro began calling Amanda his wife after the child was born. He even referred to them all as a family. For the most part, Jocelyn was as hidden from the outside world as the others. However, unlike the three women, Castro would occasionally let her outside in the backyard, to the park, or to Sunday services with him. He even took Jocelyn to visit his family, including his mother, Lillian Rodriguez. Despite the horrors they endured, Amanda, Michelle, and Gina found solace in caring for her, protecting her innocence within a house of cruelty. Despite the torment, the women never stopped dreaming of escape, and one day, hope would become reality. Stay with us as we explore the daring escape that finally brought an end to the House of Horror. After 10 long years, the unimaginable was about to happen. Amanda Berry, trapped for over a decade, found a chance, one moment of vulnerability that could change everything. Castro left the house with Amanda's door unlocked that afternoon, which he rarely did. Amanda's daughter, Jocelyn, now 6 years old, innocently said words that Amanda could hardly believe. I don't find Daddy. Daddy's gone. Heart pounding, Amanda hesitated. Was this another one of Castro's cruel tests? Or was this her chance to finally break free? For the first time in years, Castro had left a door unlocked. Amanda rushed to the front door, but it wasn't fully open. A padlocked storm door blocked her path. She pushed and pulled, but it wouldn't budge.
And she just going nuts on the door. So I'm like, what's your problem? Just open the door. And she says, I can't, you got it locked.
Across the street, a neighbor named Charles Ramsey was sitting to eat when he heard Amanda's desperate screams. He ran to the house and saw Amanda's arm reaching through the gap in the door. He grabbed the other side of the door and started pulling, trying to get it open. When that didn't work, he kicked at it and told Amanda to do the same thing on the other side. With his help, Amanda kicked at the bottom panel of the door. Piece by piece, it gave way. Finally, she could crawl through. With her 6-year-old daughter in her arms, Amanda ran to a neighbor's house to call 911. The entire time, she was terrified that Castro would return and hurt her, even though she was surrounded by people. Her call went through at 5:52 p.m. on that day.
Help me, I'm Amanda Berry. I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years and I'm here, I'm free now. Yeah, I'm across the street, I'm using the phone.
All right, we're sending them, okay?
Okay, I mean, like,
Who's the guy who's the guy who went out?
His name is Ariel Castro.
Those words triggered an immediate response. Within minutes, Cleveland police were sent immediately to the house. They arrived at 5:54, about 2 minutes after Amanda called for help. They are flagged by a woman with a small child in her arms, and they quickly realize that this isn't some prank call, but absolute. She's the girl from The Missing Person, Flyers Amanda Berry.
We pull up, we see this girl. She's like raising her hand, holding a child. I'm looking at my partner. You know, is it her?
Well, I look up at her, my partner looks up at her, and we look at each other, and it's like, I think that's Amanda Berry. I think that's Amanda Berry.
Michelle and Gina heard the commotion inside the house, but fear gripped them. They were terrified Castro had found Amanda trying to escape.
It was like another bombshell, just with overwhelming force just hitting me. I believe I broadcasted that Gina might still be in the house.
There might be others in the house. Georgina De Jesus might be in this house also.
2 officers squeezed through the same opening Amanda had used to escape. They unlocked the storm door, allowing additional officers to enter the house. A thorough search of the basement revealed nothing. As one officer ascended the stairs, he called Cleveland Police. Upstairs, Michelle, unaware of what was happening below, hesitated before finally gathering the courage to investigate.
She kind of popped out into the doorway and paused there for a second. Within moments, she came charging at me. She jumped onto me. She's like, "You saved us, you saved us."
It must have been a series of overwhelming emotions of disbelief, perhaps that she'd finally managed to escape from her abduction. As soon as she realized it was the police, Michelle ran into the officers' arms and hugged them, telling them to never let her go.
And then within a few seconds, I see another girl come out of the bedroom, and I asked her, what's your name? She said, "My name is Georgina De Jesus." That's when I broadcasted. 2 out of 23, we found them.
Got him 23 radio. Go ahead. We found them. We found them.
For the first time in over a decade, the 3 women finally stepped outside the house that had been their prison. By then, Michelle was 32, Amanda 27, and Gina 23. The dramatic rescue quickly made headlines worldwide. However, while Amanda and Gina were reunited with their families, Michelle's journey took a more urgent turn. Instead of celebrating her newfound freedom, she was rushed to the hospital, experiencing severe chest pain and difficulty breathing. Michelle, a petite woman, weighed only 84 pounds at the time of her rescue, so frail that officers initially mistook her for a child. Doctors diagnosed Michelle with a severe bacterial infection that had gone untreated for years. Had she remained in captivity any longer, she might not have survived. While she eventually recovered from the illness, the physical toll of her ordeal was devastating. Years of repeated abuse had left her with permanent injuries. Her eyesight was irreversibly damaged due to prolonged exposure to darkness, and her facial bones bore the marks of Castro's brutal assaults, including a broken jaw inflicted by a barbell. Beyond the physical scars, Michelle also endured profound psychological trauma. The years of isolation, violence, and psychological manipulation pushed her to the brink. At times she considered ending her own life, but the thought of her son gave her the strength to hold on. For 10 years, Amanda Berry, Gina De Jesus, and Michelle Knight were held captive inside Ariel Castro's home. Their story leaves us with haunting questions. Why didn't they escape sooner? And how did the system fail them for so long? From the moment they were abducted, Castro used a powerful weapon: fear. He threatened them with severe punishment or death if they disobeyed, conditioning them to comply. Over time, their minds shifted into survival mode, forcing them to adapt by obeying his every demand. Psychologists call this Stockholm Syndrome, a defense mechanism, where victims form emotional bonds with their captor as a way to reduce fear and increase their chances of survival. To endure the relentless abuse, the women relied on dissociation, mentally detaching from their reality to cope with the daily horrors. Eventually, Castro no longer needed to restrain them physically. Psychological control was enough. He dictated their every move, reinforcing his dominance through deprivation and punishment, such as withholding food or locking them in their rooms for extended periods. While Castro maintained an illusion of normalcy, there were moments when the outside world came dangerously close to uncovering his secret. Years before their rescue, several neighbors witnessed disturbing incidents. Elsie Centron, who lived nearby, reported seeing a naked woman crawling in Castro's backyard. Despite calling the police, the report was dismissed. Israel Lugo, another neighbor, recalled hearing loud pounding from inside Castro's house in 2011. Officers arrived but left when Castro didn't answer the door. Law enforcement later admitted they had visited Castro's home twice over the years but claimed the visits. Meanwhile, Castro was seen by neighbors as a friendly, approachable figure, someone who blended in effortlessly with the community. After Amada's call, police quickly issued a description of Ariel Castro's vehicle, and within minutes, he was located and taken into custody as he pulled into a McDonald's parking lot at 6:16 p.m. He was arrested on the spot, with a male relative in the car. Shortly afterward, authorities announced the arrest of two other individuals, Castro's brothers, Pedro and O'Neill, on suspicion of involvement in the kidnappings. All three men were detained, but after further investigation, only Ariel Castro was formally charged. His brothers were later released, with law enforcement concluding that neither had any knowledge of the crimes. Generally, individuals are not legally required to report a crime they may have known about, witnessed, or discovered after the fact, unless they fall under specific legal obligations, such as mandated reporting. However, those who actively assist or conceal criminal activity could face legal consequences, such as being charged with obstruction of justice. With Ariel Castro in custody, investigators began to uncover the grim reality inside 2207 Seymour Avenue. What they found shocked even the most seasoned officers: chains, padlocks, and makeshift prison cells, all hidden behind the unassuming walls of a rundown house. Windows were boarded up to keep any signs of life from escaping. Rooms had been turned into cells with heavy locks on every door. The women's personal belongings, such as diaries, small trinkets, served as chilling reminders of their stolen years. It was clear that the three women had endured years of unimaginable abuse. During questioning, Ariel Castro showed little remorse. He attempted to justify his actions, claiming he had been driven by an addiction to pornography and personal trauma from his childhood.
I went to school with Ariel Castro. He was never a problem in school. I played in a band with my family members and was always respectful and nice.
I first met Ariel Castro back junior high school days, where they was in this band called Los Taínos, and I was really impressed with them, so I joined the band, and it was a pretty good band. He was a great musician.
So I used to sit down in the back. I used to get my little pop, sit down, my little sandwich, and I used to listen to it. And I hear him singing, and him with the bass player. I was like, wow, amazing.
Ariel Castro was born in Puerto Rico, but relocated to Ohio as a young child. From an early age, music became a central part of his life and identity. In 1992, he purchased a modest house on Seymour Avenue while working as a school bus driver in Cleveland. Over the next 2 decades, Castro became a well-known and seemingly friendly figure within the community. He socialized with neighbors, played with local children, and often interacted with young girls in a way that some found charming, winking and joking with them. To many, he appeared to be nothing more than a friendly, ordinary man, the kind of neighbor who would share meals and blend effortlessly into the fabric of everyday life. However, behind closed doors, Castro harbored a dark and violent side that few suspected. His history of abuse stretched back years, with police reports documenting multiple incidents of domestic violence against his common-law wife, Grimilda Figueroa. Records indicate that as early as 1989, Figueroa sought police intervention, but ultimately refrained from pressing charges after Castro allegedly threatened to kill both her and their children. In one report, Figueroa confronted Castro about his whereabouts, leading to a violent outburst in which he slapped her. When she tried to escape, he slammed her into a wall and a washing machine, leaving her with injuries to her shoulder and arm. Another police report describes an even more brutal incident. Castro reportedly stomped on Figueroa's head with his boots in front of their children. In a desperate moment, Figueroa's son managed to flee the house, giving her an opportunity to lock Castro out and call for help. Court documents later revealed the extent of the injuries she suffered at Castro's hands, including a broken nose, broken ribs, 2 dislocated shoulders, and a lost tooth. Years of abuse also left her with a brain tumor believed to have been caused by repeated head trauma. Despite the severity of the abuse, Castro evaded prosecution for years. On one occasion, when Figueroa attempted to testify in court, he allegedly threatened her at the courthouse entrance, scaring her into silence. Without her testimony, prosecutors were unable to move forward with charges. Like many survivors of domestic abuse, Figueroa's reluctance to cooperate may have stemmed from fear, trauma, and the hope that the violence would stop. By Amanda Berry's daring escape in 2013, Castro's long history of violence finally came to light, and justice was served. Conflicts within personal relationships can often serve as a trigger for individuals with predatory tendencies, pushing them to seek control elsewhere. In Ariel Castro's case, the breakdown of his family life may have been a significant factor that drove him to act on his long-standing desires. However, such actions are rarely spontaneous. Individuals like Castro do not wake up one day and suddenly decide to abduct multiple victims. Rather, such crimes are the result of years of planning, fantasizing, and rehearsing in their minds. Castro's primary motive was control, but sexual gratification played a significant secondary role. For offenders like him, control and domination over their victims fulfilled deeply rooted fantasies. Criminal profilers often describe such predators as viewing their victims as objects, akin to items on a shelf, available whenever their urges demand. This distorted mindset allowed Castro to rationalize his crimes, treating his victims as possessions he could use and exploit at will. Further insight into Castro's psychology was uncovered during the investigation, when authorities discovered a letter in his Seymour Avenue home. Believed to have been written in 2004, the letter provided a disturbing glimpse into his thoughts. In it, Castro attempted to shift blame onto his victims, suggesting that they were responsible for their own abduction because they made the mistake of trusting a stranger. By downplaying his responsibility, he painted himself as less of a criminal and more as someone taking advantage of an opportunity. The letter also revealed Castro's internal conflict. He expressed thoughts of suicide, indicating an awareness of the monstrous nature of his actions. He described himself as someone leading a normal life in public, while privately engaging in horrifying acts.
As well as the fact that in most cases of abduction, these are impulsive in nature and the victim is kept only for a matter of minutes or hours. In this case, rather than a short abduction is a tactic. In fact, there appeared to be a strategy here that extended over a period of many years. And this is quite unusual and in fact unprecedented.
Psychological evaluations and expert analysis revealed that Castro exhibited numerous traits associated with narcissistic personality disorder, including a grandiose sense of self-importance, an obsession with fantasies of power and control, a need for constant admiration, a sense of entitlement and exploitation of others, a complete lack of empathy for his victims, and arrogant and manipulative behavior. His actions also demonstrated clear signs of sadism, as he derived satisfaction from inflicting both physical and emotional pain on his victims.
First of all, I'm a very emotional person, so I'm going to try to get it out. I stated before that I was a victim of sex acts when I was a child. This led me into viewing pornography for my whole life. Eventually, after I held jobs, because I always worked, what I'm trying to get is that these people are trying to paint me as a monster, and I'm not a monster. I'm sick. And then my sexual problems is so bad on my mind.
During his trial, Ariel Castro attempted to justify his actions by claiming an addiction to adult content, using it as an excuse for his behavior. He acknowledged being a sexual predator, but framed it in a way that deflected responsibility, implying that without proper help, his actions were inevitable. Castro even went so far as to suggest that, upon his death, he would leave his money and property to his victims, as if financial compensation could somehow erase the years of abuse, trauma, and suffering he inflicted. Despite overwhelming evidence against him, including chains and ropes found in his home, Castro insisted that he had treated the women well and that their interactions were consensual. When confronted about forcing Michelle Knight to miscarry multiple pregnancies, he admitted to it, but claimed it was always a mutual decision, statements that directly contradicted the testimony of his victims and the physical evidence collected by investigators. Throughout the legal proceedings, Castro refused to accept accountability, portraying himself as a man struggling with illness rather than a calculated offender who had spent over a decade systematically abusing and controlling his victims. His legal team pleaded not guilty in court and waived the indictment, reading, and the 24-hour response period. Despite facing hundreds of charges, including kidnapping, sexual assault, and aggravated murder, Castro hoped to avoid a trial that could result in the death penalty. When the sentencing day arrived, only Michelle Knight attended the hearing, standing as a testament to the resilience of the survivors.
Ariel Castro, I remember all the times that you came home talking about what everybody else did wrong and act like you wasn't doing the same thing. You said, at least I didn't kill you. You took 11 years of my life away, and I have got it back. I spent 11 years in hell. Now your hell is just beginning.
On August 1, 2013, Ariel Castro was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 1,000 years. He pleaded guilty to 937 charges, which included kidnapping, sexual assault, and other crimes, in a deal to avoid the death penalty. Each count reflected the individual crimes he had committed against his victims over a decade. However, Castro's time behind bars was short-lived. Less than 2 months into his sentence, on September 3, 2013, he was found dead in his prison cell, having taken his own life by hanging. Prison records indicated that Castro had been under special observation due to concerns about his mental state and the risk of self-harm. For years, Castro exercised complete control over his victims. But in prison, stripped of his power, he struggled with the reality that he was no longer in command of his surroundings. Reports indicated that he frequently complained about the quality of prison food, even suspecting it had been tampered with, and accused the guards of negligence. His body was discovered 27 minutes after the last routine check. He was found kneeling, with a bedsheet tied around his neck and secured to a window hinge. Investigators initially considered the possibility that his death resulted from autoerotic asphyxiation because his shorts were found around his ankles and he was not wearing underwear. However, after speaking with other inmates and reviewing evidence, authorities concluded that Castro had lost a significant amount of weight in prison, which caused his pants to slip down frequently. Among his final actions, Castro left a note quoting religious scripture, stating that those who confess with their heart will be saved. Another note contained doodles of hearts and flowers, with the names of his children and grandchildren written inside them, perhaps an eerie final attempt at seeking redemption. After years of unimaginable captivity, Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight stepped into the light, free at last. In August 2013, just months after their rescue, the house that once held them captive was demolished, erasing its dark presence from the neighborhood forever. All three women found purpose in advocacy work, turning their pain into power. Now a mother, Amanda Berry focused on raising her daughter Jocelyn, born during captivity. Amanda found strength in being a parent and used her experience to advocate for missing persons, determined to help other families reunite with their loved ones. Gina DeJesus found healing through her family and community. Supported by her parents and loved ones, she worked to rebuild her life step by step. In 2018, Gina co-founded the Cleveland Family Center for Missing Children and Adults, offering support to families experiencing the same anguish her own had endured for years. Michelle Knight, the longest-held victim, embarked on a journey of profound self-discovery. She changed her name to Lillian Rose Lee and poured her energy into helping survivors of abuse and trauma. Michelle shared her story of endurance and survival through her published books and public speaking, inspiring thousands with her courage. The resilience of Amanda, Gina, and Michelle serves as an inspiration to us all. Their story reminds us that hope can survive even in the darkest circumstances. What do you think about the case? Please let us know. If you find their journey inspiring, please like, share, and subscribe to help raise awareness for missing persons and survivors of abuse. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, you can make a difference. We'll see you next time.